I'm Job Samuel McCoy is my full name, and my pen name is J. Solomon Wise. And I completed a book entitled Keys to a Sacred Place. I chose the pen name J. Solomon Wise out of respect for one of my most favorite members of the Bible, which is King Solomon. I particularly enjoyed reading his works, Proverbs and Psalms, and he was known as one of the wisest men in the Bible. So it led me to choose that as a pen name. It's a play on my name, which is Job Samuel. So J. Solomon Wise is in honor of King Solomon, but I also felt in order to attract the proper spiritual audience to this work, his name would carry a whole lot more weight than my personal individual name. So that's why I went with J. Solomon Wise. As far as a personal experience, I think back to when I was 5 years old and mother took me on my very first fishing experience. My mama was a pretty wise and amazing person because she loved literally fishing. And she realized in order to get her kids to go fishing with her and love fishing as much as she did, she would have to take us to a place where we would have just an exciting and memorable experience. So she took us to a pond with one of her friends that had an abundance of fish that were really, really hungry. So she got us to the pond. She started teaching us what we needed to do to fish. And so she gave us a cane pole. She gave us bait. She taught us how to bait the hook. And she cast her pole in the water first. And immediately within 2 to 3 seconds, her cork went out of sight and she caught a fish. And so she said, hey, that's all there is to it. So my sister and I were taught how to bait the hooks. We threw our poles in the water. And shortly within 2 to 3 seconds, my cork bobbled, wavered away from me and went out of sight. And she said, son, you got a fish on the line, bring him out of the water. The interesting thing about cane poles is they're limber. So it wasn't an immediate process getting that fish out of the water. It actually took me maybe a couple of minutes because the cork was so limber and the fish was a large fish for a 5-year-old. But I finally got him out of the water. Then she taught me the technique of taking him off the hook because the fish have fins, so you have to pin the fins down to get them off the hook. That whole day, we just caught fish repeatedly as quickly as we put our hooks in the water. And it made me love fishing for life from that experience. Mama knew what she was doing. Okay, a typical day for me at present is I'm still gainfully employed in pharmaceutical sales. So a typical day is I wake up between 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning, grab my cup of coffee, turn on SportsCenter, and plan my work day. My work day consists of essentially trying to route which customers I'm going to go spend time with that particular day. But there are a lot of other duties with the job. I have to also coordinate my schedule with my work partner. I have to interact with my business manager. I may have to talk to work colleagues. And then, of course, as the day gets going, I got to drive to the destinations for the various customers I'm going to go see. And then after that, the bulk of my real work is doing face-to-face sales presentations, whether it's over coffees or lunches or breaks. And that consists of the majority of the day. And I spend probably about half of my time driving to and fro to see customers because my territory is a remote territory, so I travel distances, which affords me a lot of time to just listen to music and do whatever during the course of driving to and from customers. The most enjoyable part of my workday is, however, getting in front of those customers, whether it's physicians or their staff, because that's the lifeblood of what I do. And it's always fun to help change patients' lives with the products. I do enjoy that part. So I'm a people person by nature, so having an opportunity to work with people and to help people is a big part of what I enjoy about my work. What keeps me busy? I would say right now it's this corporate job because, sales is a very complex job. It looks simple, but it's very complicated and very involved. Along with all of the aspects of maintaining and managing customers and the driving to and fro and doing the sales discussions and presentations, we have to do a lot of other administrative tasks. We have to manage territory analysis. We have to do routing. We have to do a lot of training sessions on the disease states and the products that we carry. So that job is very, very involved. It's pretty much something that keeps me going throughout the day. And you asked me about activities as well. As far as activities away from work, I just enjoy listening to music, reading and writing. and watching television. But I do a lot of reading. That's something I've always done a lot of. I don't know whether it's just because growing up in rural South Carolina, we didn't have a lot around us we could do. So we lived vicariously through books. And it was always a joy for me to pick up a good book and immerse myself in it and live life through the book. I started writing at a fairly young age, honestly. And it's interesting because initially writing was like therapy for me personally to express my whatever issues and challenges I was faced with as a youth. And it also allowed me to be creative. I'm kind of artistically oriented. I write. When I was younger, I drew a lot. But then I got into the writing and found I could express myself freely. And it allowed me to just really, really get my thoughts out. And I was kind of a loner as a child. So I spent a lot of time thinking on and trying to solve all of life's problems, if you will. So it allowed me to express those things in words. And then as I got into reading at a high level, I probably read the majority of the books at my little small high school and got into reading different types of topics and subject matters. And I realized that the pen is truly mightier than the sword. So I could use that as a medium to help others in life. So that would be what I would say inspired me to become an author. My personal mentors that played a key role in my life was clearly my mother. I affectionately called her Mama. And that's the term we used for her because it was a term that she was endeared to. She was just such an instrumental part of walking a life pattern that showed that she truly believed in her faith and her convictions as a Christian. I mean, she was that Christ person that helped everybody in the community. I mean, she fed the poor. She took care of the sick. She took care of our entire family and all of her family. And she was just about love and laughter and life in a positive, loving way. And so she walked and modeled the principles in a way that it was crystal clear to me that you got to be a person that's giving and caring and taking care of others in life. And my other mentor is my oldest brother, Jerry. For some strange reason, even at a young age, when I was as young as 4, he talked to me like I was a grown person. And I don't know whether he saw something in me as a child that made him realize that I had the intellect and the maturity to receive the conversations. But he always talked to me as an adult, and he always nurtured me positively. I recall telling him at the age of 4 that I wanted to do something in life that would benefit my people. And he said to me, "Job, that's a wonderful purpose." He said, "If you do that, you will change the world." So he was always very encouraging and supportive of me in life. So I would say those are the two people. And then when I have any type of spiritual, profound thoughts that I want to talk to anybody about, it's usually Jerry, because Mom has gone on to glory now. So I don't have the benefit of having her physically around anymore. So I would say Mama and Jerry are my mentors in life. I was actually led to write this book for all people of all denominations and faiths, and for anyone that's seeking to have a clearer understanding individually of their spiritual walk. For some strange reason, obviously my reference point throughout the book is my Christian faith, but I was led not to alienate any denomination of faith because, God said, "I am that I am." He is Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. So there is no faith outside of God's realm. But if we remove the spiritual aspect of our faith away from us physically, we can never fully maximize our spiritual walks in life. So I happen to feel that Keys to a Sacred Place has a place for all denominations and faiths. And hopefully it does not alienate any denomination and faith. It's not designed to be a judgment or a criticism as much as a resource to help people get inside themselves and grow more spiritually in life. So the book is written for anyone who's seeking to have a better self-awareness of themselves individually, spiritually, to supplement their denominations and faith. That's who Keys to Sacred Place is written for. Yes, we are a spirit with a mind and a body. The simplest analogy I can use to help relate that is when you see an iceberg, you see 1/3 of the iceberg above the water, but 2/3 is beneath the water. So if you think about yourself in that context, that 1/3 above the water for us is that physical person. The 2/3 beneath is the spirit and the mind. So we have to fully recognize the energy and necessary aspect of synergizing all portions of who we are. So that's why it almost changes your focus a little bit. And throughout the book, I talk about and use physical examples to explain spiritual principles. And the whole point with that is If you can truly get to the spiritual essence of who you are, your moral fiber, your moral choices and decisions in life, and how you approach being of service and how you minister to others through your spiritual walk has a whole different meaning to you. And it also allows you to feel more complete, more whole, and more at peace with who you are and more balanced. So that's the whole point of understanding you are a spirit with a body. The body is just a vessel in the package, and one day your spirit's going to go away and that body will return to dust. In order to reason from within, it's simply a matter of having enough patience to not react to your physical emotions all the time. The physical nature can sometimes be, in my opinion, and I expressed in the book, kind of the childish person in the relationship. The mind is the adolescent that's influenced by either the physical or the spiritual, and the spiritual is the adult. So when you allow yourself time to not just react, you find that you will temper whatever you're thinking to react to more based on your morals and spiritual principles. So the whole goal with within without is to make certain every choice and decision you make, you give yourself enough time to meditate and reflect on those choices and make certain they align with what you believe morally and spiritually. And once you do that, you're reacting and living and thinking within as opposed to letting that physical body dictate. The physical body is also very selfish. It has very selfish physical wants and needs that have nothing to do with the benefit of what you do spiritually in life. So you can choose to live a life of just chasing after your physical whims, I guess, or you can choose to live a life and be tempered by the morals and principles you choose to stand for and help and benefit others. So that's what within without is all about. Reflection, self-reflection is the most important thing any of us can do. And primarily because it's through that self-reflection that you understand your life's challenges, your shortcomings, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your growth process. And it requires you to be humble enough and have enough humility to do self-reflection. The other good thing about self-reflection is it takes the focus off your judging others and puts the focus on you. And I've found in my case in life, I tell people all the time, the only person's life that Job can judge is Job. And what I mean by that is I should be modeling some way what I stand for with my values, as opposed to trying to criticize and critique someone else's values. And that becomes what that self-reflection allows you to do, is to focus on you. Because in the end, only God can judge anyways. And he doesn't want us judging others as much as uplifting and nurturing others. And oftentimes he can convict them through your modeling and your behavior. So it does have a purpose in that if you are truly trying to model what you've reflected on and you're growing through that process. As far as what I've done in the book for self-reflection, I did try to use a lot of physical examples to talk about spiritual principles that they can meditate on and reflect on. The other thing I did in the book that's unique that I was led to do is to have a workbook at the end of each chapter so people can reflect on and think about their thoughts from each chapter. And it's such an individualized process. Everybody's going to gain something different from the chapters. And that's the beautiful thing about us all being individuals and all of us uniquely specific and specifically unique to God. So that's what self-reflection allows. If I could go back in time and share one thing with my younger self, it would be to have the awareness that I'm special because I'm made in God's image, spirit, mind, and body. Because as a child, I think as I said before, I happen to believe you're born into a physical dominant existence to grow into the wholeness of who you are spiritually and mentally. And as a child, you react to the world in a physical sense, but yet you're fully aware of spiritual things. Children seem to be more open, but they don't always understand how powerful that spiritual and mental part of themselves are at a young age. So if I could do anything, even though I feel I was somewhat of an old soul, I would go back with the awareness that, hey, I'm three-dimensional and my goal is to move fully whole into letting the spirit govern my mind and my body. Even at that age, that's what I would have done. I didn't face a great deal of challenges in the sense that, as I stated before, I honestly feel I was the humble vessel through whom this powerful spiritual insights were poured through. But if I had to speak of challenges, interestingly enough, I would write for weeks on end with this work. It's almost like I was being filled to the top with just so much knowledge that was bursting out of me that I had to express. And I would write profusely for weeks and then put it down. And I guess it was a physical and emotional drain that I needed to recharge myself in those ways to get back to the knowledge that was being poured through me. So I would say that would be the challenge that I faced. So it took me a number of years to capture all the things that I was led to convey in the book. That would be the challenge that I had to deal with, I would say. But it was just such a wondrous process and such a humbling thing to just have it all laid out. I almost can understand how the great writers of the Bible and the prophets must have felt having the archangels or whomever come to them and convey knowledge, because I felt very much that way, that little silent Holy Spirit voice was sharing these insights that Job just had to put it down. But the beautiful thing about it is I did have a model example in my mother, so I could have something to draw from that made that process not so daunting and confusing. But that would be the challenge, just having so much thrown at me that I had to just write, and I would put it down. And amazingly, when I picked it back up, I was right where I left off. So that was kind of an amazing, humbling experience for me. I would want them to understand the specialness of their awesomeness in being made three-dimensionally spirit, mind, and body, and to fully seek to maximize every capacity of themselves. Hopefully the book will give them guidance toward continued spiritual understanding that they can apply toward their own denominations or faiths, and they can mold themselves into being whole of spirit, mind, and body, and just live life to the fullest. And they can achieve and accomplish their dreams. It's my hope they can do all that they can do to maximize their potential to becoming more whole spirit, mind, and body. I've been writing and I continue to write, interestingly enough. I have a lot of childhood stories, poems, short stories that I've written over the years that I intend to convert, because I honestly feel each of us has a story. Each of us has something that can help others get laughter, joy, sometimes get through difficult experiences, because what we experience, we're surprisingly don't understand that others go through a lot of the similar things we've gone through. So yes, writing is on my horizon for sure, but I was led to believe that Keys to a Sacred Place is a foundational work, and there are higher works spiritually God may lead me to do down the road. So I feel like my ultimate goal is to have a publishing entity that I can do my works through and do more spiritually uplifting works and more just positive motivational works in general. And I'm in the midst of working on several as we speak. I'm working on a book of blogs because I happen to feel that in today's society, a blog lends itself to our attention deficit mindsets that we want something we can read fast and get through, as opposed to a book with chapters. So yes, there's works to come, and I'm excited about what those works will be, and those works come into fruition. That's a great question, honestly, because Reading Glass books pursued me for 2 years, literally. They would send me emails telling me, Mr. McCoy, we'd love to help you get your book endorsed by a major book company. And I ran for 2 years because honestly, I finished Keys to a Sacred Place in 2009. And I really had no intentions of moving forward with my writing and any other works until I retired from my professional sales job. But I asked a question of them one day. I said, have you done a review of my book? And they say, yes, in fact, we had. I had other people come after me wanting to help me get an endorsement for my book, and I'd ask the same question, and they started stuttering and stammering and had nothing. So I said, well, send me a copy of your review. And when they did, their review was right on point, because they pointed out very clearly that what made this book different was most other spiritual works focus on helping people within a church environment. This was a self-help book to help people individually work on their spiritual growth and development. And they were really excited about it. I'm like, wow. And so then I started thinking a little further, and I tend to try to read the spiritual tea leaves in life and my spiritual intuitions. And I said, well, you know what, Job, you're just a couple of years away from retirement. So maybe now is the appropriate time to get someone to support and assist you in the process of moving this book forward as a foundational book to help you get toward the other works down the road. So that's why I chose to go with Reading Glass Books. Well, first of all, being an amateur writer, I had not one clue about the process of getting this book out on the national media and getting the national exposure. I did know when I finished it, I self-published and I printed 100 copies, of which I gave some to family and friends and sold another 70 or 80, just based on sharing with them what the purpose of the book was. But I also realized in today's society, at some point, I had to have the book available in other formats like electronic and maybe even voice, which we're not there yet. And I had to do some type of mass distribution at some point that I have chosen not to do thus far. So when they reached out to me, they explained the process of what it would take to get this book from point A to point Z and get it in the hands of major book companies. And not only did they explain the process, they were willing to put those pieces in place, and they did that. So having said all of that, I've learned a lot along the way. They also created a website for me, so I'm more socially, attuned with the times. They've taken the book to book shows for me as well. Through that effort, actually, I now have a literary agent seeking to get endorsements for me through 2 different publishing entities. So in talking to the agent, he said, well, Mr. McCoy, look at it this way. Reading Glass was the bridge from you to me. They got you to me. So they did their job, in my opinion, at that point. They did their job of getting me versed in understanding what the process is and moving this whole project to the point where it'll get endorsed by a major publisher. I would say as an amateur writer, the things they did is everything that an amateur writer would have to do on their own. I mean, I know we're gifted to some degree with the aspect of writing, but it's when it comes to really putting the portfolio, if you will, together of your work. It's almost like if you're a model, you may be beautiful, but if you don't have someone to put together a proper portfolio for you, your work is never going to get in front of the modeling agencies that you need to be professional and successful. So I would give them that credit that the things they've done, they've been honest and truthful. There's even been occasions where they've asked me to do things that I financially was not able to do at that point in time and was not willing to do as an amateur writer. But it came back full circle that those things were also needed at some point. So I have to give them credit. They've done a great job of steering me as an amateur writer toward those things I need to get to where I am right now. So I do give them full credit for that.